pretty, but I'm glad I don't have a sense of smell anymore. Adelaide's last performance. She could really bring the house down. You should have let me be buried wearing my hat. At least it wouldn't be gathering dust like it is now.
If I'd done that, it would be dust right now.
Heh, fair point. Wouldn't you say it's time for a change of clothes, Miles? You've been wearing that coat for who knows how long.
So? Addie gave it to me. Besides, it gives me character.
Right. Brooding detective in a long black coat. That's never been seen before.
What are you talking about, Bill?
Never mind. I'm certain a permanent indentation in the shape of your rear is starting to form on that thing. Remember, before you started taking that medicine, and you could actually read a book for more than 10 minutes before falling asleep? You were a lot more fun to talk to back then. That's a fun little apparatus Adelaide got you. Very soothing.
Watching it spin long enough puts me right to sleep.
I'd say that's really more the soporifics doing. I always liked that self-portrait of Adelaide's mother, even if the eyes do always follow you around the room. Cozy little winter getaway. That would be a welcome change from the winters in this city. Adelaide's mother certainly enjoyed pressing flowers. Do you suppose she does more of it now that she's retired? Adelaide's mother certainly enjoyed... Miles, care to explain what you're doing?
Just checking to make sure everything that needs to be in here still is.
Right. If you start taking that stuff during the day, you're really going to have problems. Don't worry, Miles. I don't watch when you and Adelaide are having your private time.
It would be nice if you didn't spend the whole time humming.
I thought you appreciated some romantic music. It's admirable just how organized Adelaide is. Maybe someday the same can be said about you. Ha, that poster brings back some memories. That's from around the time you two met, isn't it?
Yes, back when Addie was singing at the Angel.
I'm certain a permanent indentation in the shape of your rear is starting to form on that thing.
Well, look who's awake. Ready to rejoin the living?
Very much so.
You were talking in your sleep again.
Did I say anything interesting?
Do you ever?
You have to admit, she's got you there.
How are you feeling?
A touch groggy. I think I took a bit too much of the soporific last night.
That's what I thought. When you went for your after-lunch nap, you'd barely gotten breakfast down. I saved you some bread and cheese if you're hungry.
Thank you, but I haven't got much of an appetite.
You really should regulate your doses more carefully, love. I'm sure dull senses and an empty stomach aren't much help to your work. By the way, a message arrived via courier for you this morning. I put it on the table along with today's newspaper.
Thank you, dear. Upton says she's got a big case for me.
Does she go into any more detail than that?
No, but then you know Upton. Always on a need-to-know basis. Especially since she's been giving me these cases under the table.
To be fair, they haven't exactly been anything of note.
True, but she's still sticking her neck out for me. I can understand why she's so secretive about it.
I think she just misses having you around the station.
Poor Connie. With you quitting and me dying, she must be bored stiff at work.
Anyway, I'm supposed to meet her at the ruined coffee house. That can't be right.
It's not like Constance to make mistakes. She must have gotten in somehow.
Guess I'll head over there and see what she's got then.
Ah, the Havisham case. Our first time out as partners. First in a long line of successful cases. It's nice to have a memory of the good old days. I'd love to see the look on Snelling's face if he ever found out you kept your old truncheon. Bollingworth Ale. My favorite! And a nice souvenir from the Angel. You really ought to go back there someday. It's been so long since you used that desk. Did you even notice when Adelaide got rid of the chair? That makes me wonder what old Mrs. Handbrook is up to these days. Adelaide's father certainly had an amazing life. Imagine being the personal barber to the Prime Minister and his family. The gossip and secrets he must have heard. Building those model ships was a good way to pass the time between cases. Hopefully it'll be a while before you get enough time to build another one. Your book collection has always astonished me. Heaven help you if you ever decide to move. Your book collection is always astonished. You remember how much time Adelaide had to spend convincing you to sit for this? At least these days, with ferrotype tech advancing the way it is, these portraits can be done in just a matter of minutes. Didn't I give you two that clock as a wedding present? Too bad it stopped working. I can see why Adelaide calls that plant Miles Jr. It's a spitting image. How are your parents doing these days? It's been ages since you wrote them. I always liked that painting. It's impossible to see that kind of scenery here in the city. It might do you some good to look in the mirror a bit more often, Miles. If there isn't a pair of scissors or a hairbrush in Adelaide's hands, you can bet there'll be a book.
Addie?
Yes, dear?
How's work going? Do you have any appointments today?
Yes, one this evening. It's been a bit slow lately, but pretty soon it'll be debutante ball season, and all the Gascon grand dames will need their hair done. You sure I can't convince you to let me give you a little trim? You've been looking awfully scruffy lately.
What's the point? I've got no need to go peacocking around town. You're the only girl for me.
I like it when you're clean cut. It brings out your eyes.
The way my eyes have been looking lately, I think it's best to keep them hidden. How are you? It feels as though we haven't seen much of each other these past few days.
I've been fine.
Addie, you're not a very good liar. What's on your mind?
I'm worried about you, Miles.
I know, but I've told you there's no need to worry about me. I'm all right.
You're not all right, Miles. I may not be a good liar, but you can't fool me either.
I am all right. What do I have to do to convince you of that?
You could start by throwing out that sleeping medicine. It's turned you into a different person.
I needed to sleep, Addie. I'll become an even worse person without it, believe me.
I know Bill's death was hard for you. It was hard for all of us. But whatever it is that's bothering you, you know you can talk to me about it. That's what I'm here for.
I know, my love. Your support means the world to me. I need some time to deal with things. That's all. It won't always be like this, I promise.
Making promises you can't keep, eh, Miles? That'll end well.
What's that you're reading?
It's a collection of short stories by James Penstroke. It was just published earlier this month.
Any good?
Oh yes, I love his work. He's been publishing a new serial in Brentwell magazine. I can't wait to read it. Perhaps we both can together? I think you'd enjoy him.
Lately, I haven't been able to concentrate on a page for more than 5 minutes without nodding off.
That is a pity.
I've still got that song you sang last week at the Rutherford stuck in my head. You were amazing.
Thank you, Miles. That was a lovely evening. I always enjoy it when Joseph brings out his violin and we can relive the old days.
Certainly nicer than when he spends hours telling the exact same story whenever you visit.
They were very glad to see you, you know.
It's probably the most fun I've had in months, to be honest.
They've invited us for dinner again in a couple of weeks, if you're feeling up to it.
I hope I am. I'll let you get back to your book. I'll see you later, Addie.
I look forward to your return.
Ah, the Rouen Coffee House. Worst Java in Lamplight City, but there's no better place to overhear all the rumors and gossip in town. Just make sure you don't get too close to the other patrons. Discretion was never your forte. A young woman holding a guitar. Completely the wrong way, I might add. Give me an old-fashioned tea kettle any day. Seems like they have a little something for everyone in here. The specialty house brews. These are definitely not coffee. All that metal and tubing just to serve a hot cup of coffee? If this is how they store their coffee beans, it's probably a better idea to ask for tea. Self-Portrait as a Desperate Man by B. Calvert. A bit like looking in the mirror, isn't it, Miles? Nice seaside landscape. Definitely a stark contrast to the ambiance in here. What a cheery reminder of everyone's impending death. That whole thing about the man in the black robe, complete lie, by the way. Not in much of a hurry to clean up in here, are they? Green's Sulfur Soap. Beautifies the complexion and leaves you smelling fresh as a daisy. Talk about false advertising. I couldn't get a date for a week after using that stuff. Dr. Tennyson's Vigor Pills. Absolutely guaranteed to restore vitality, youth, and vigor or your money back. For use by men only. These things seem to have had a spike in popularity recently. Dr. W.S. Sales Wonder Tonic. The best and safest medicine for both gentlemen and ladies. Prevents consumption, general weakness, feverishness, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, loss of appetite, flatulence, and head pain. They should also mention that it prevents breathing, heartbeats, and being alive. Professor Xander Colt Tit III's emulsified soporific, available at all discerning pharmacies. I really don't know why you think taking that rat piss every night is a good idea, Fordham. Simon Banks, professional chimney sweep. Services start at 2 coppers per hour. Inquire at 305 Merrick Lane. I'm sure he's a lovable urchin, but thankfully, your chimney is clean. P.D. Preston's patented papier-mâché perambucat. Handsomely upholstered in silk, satin, or velvet, and hand-painted in the most artistic manner, as shown in engraving. I suppose if you and Adelaide ever finally decide to have children, something like this will come in handy. Just one of many patrons contributing to the oppressive thug in here. Asleep at a coffee house. One of life's little ironies. Judging by the sooty apron, this man is either a metal worker, a chimney sweep, or just really lazy when it comes to washing. Best avoid that one. He looks like he might tip over at any moment. Reminds me of when I was alive. Ah, good times. He's missing his left arm below the elbow. How do you suppose that happened? He and his friend are having quite the conversation, and I bet it's really boring. She's running back and forth at lightning speed. Clearly, she dips into the coffee supply.
If it isn't my old friend, up to no good.
Hello, Fordham. It's good to see you.
How did you get them to let you in here?
It's rather simple, really. The owner and I have an understanding. He pretends women are allowed in coffee houses, and I don't report his unsavory business practices to Chief Snelling.
Sounds like a good deal. What sort of unsavory business practices are we talking about?
Oh, we haven't got time to get into that now. But take some advice. Don't order anything that isn't water.
I got your message. What's going on?
It's time for you to join the big boys again, Fordham. Your days of finding lost cats are over.
So stop teasing me and tell me what it is already.
Do you know Madame Laura Dupre?
Laura Dupre. She's one of those Gascon Grand Dames, isn't she?
That's right. I'm surprised you've heard of her. I didn't think you cared about those types of people.
I don't, but Adelaide has several of them as clients. She gets paid to pretend to care about their lives, and I get to hear the sordid details.
Madame Dupre died the day before yesterday. Her funeral was held this morning.
My condolences.
But halfway through the service, the mourners heard a loud knocking coming from inside her coffin.
She wasn't dead?
Apparently not. Nearly interred alive, although her doctor swears she had no pulse. Dupre's son Andrew was quick to suspect foul play. He accused a man named Albert Martin, and the police arrested him.
So where do I come in? Sounds like the case has already been solved.
I strongly suspect that Martin is innocent, especially considering the talk of him having used black magic on Dupre. The police feel they have enough evidence to convict, so they're not bothering to investigate any further. You're going to look into it and see if I'm right, then find the person who was really behind this.
Has Madame Dupre recovered from her ordeal?
I'm afraid not. Apparently she's been catatonic since they pulled her out of the coffin.
How unfortunate.
If you'd like to question Mr. Martin, he's being held at the Bow Street Jail. Or you could take a look around his house. It's at 451 Compton Street in Worcester.
And the Dupre home?
That's at Emmeline and Comtesse, right across from the old Angeline convent. It's also possible you might run into the police during your investigation, since they're technically still on the case.
Thanks for the warning.
Was there anything you wanted to talk about before you get started?
Yes, actually, I had a couple of questions.
Let's hear them then.
How are things going with you?
Work is hectic as usual, and I'm spending my day off in here. But considering my home life is still a shambles, maybe this is the best place to be.
I'm truly sorry about that.
Don't be ridiculous. If it hadn't been for you, I'd still be chained to that philandering bastard. It hasn't been easy, but I'm much better off this way. Trust me. Anyway, work gives me something to focus on. I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yes, and I'm grateful to you for getting me these case leads. I know you're taking a risk to do it.
It's the least I can do. How about you? How's Adelaide?
She's fine, although things between us could be improved, if I'm being honest. The less said about it right now, the better, I think.
I'm sorry to hear that. You can talk to me about it if you need to, although I'm probably not the best person to ask for relationship advice.
Don't suppose there have been any developments regarding Bill's murder.
Unfortunately not. The department hasn't exactly been focusing on that case as a priority. The general attitude is that it was an accident. Bill died an honorable death in the line of duty.
Would have been nice if they bothered saying that at the funeral.
And of course there are still those who blame you for his death, Snelling being the first and foremost.
But the man who really caused Bill's death is still out there.
Yes, I know, but it looks like you're on your own if you want to find him. My hands are tied. I can only ask around so much before the higher-ups get suspicious. Just don't give up. New Britannia may be a big city, but the criminal world is surprisingly close-knit. If you find any connections or leads during your other cases, be sure and let me know. I'll do the same if I find anything out.
See, she has a priority straight. You could learn a lot from Upton.
I wanted to go over the case with you.
Okay, what have you got?
What do you know about Madame Dupre?
Only what I've read about her in the paper. She's been married thrice, which I can empathize with, and she's extremely rich, which I can't.
What makes you think this Martin fellow is innocent?
The fact that the only evidence is the word of Dupre's son. I've seen this sort of thing thousands of times, and I'm sure you did too. They're just looking for a scapegoat. You're the only person I know who can put it right.
Upton's intentions are noble, but she has to realize this is just a drop in the ocean.
That's enough about the case for now.
Okay,
That's it, I think.
then you'd better get back to it.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to help you find the flower shop burglar. But I suppose freeing an innocent man is a worthy diversion.
Fordham? Is that you? You look like something a cat spat up.
Hello, Giles. It's lovely to see you too.
What brings you round the jail? I thought you'd quit being a detective.
I'm looking to speak with Mr. Albert Martin.
Oh, I see. Well, that's him in the first cell there. I'd say what needs saying as quick as you can, though. He's headed for the gallows in the morning.
What? Already? But what about a trial?
No trial necessary when there's black magic involved. This little half-breed's already sealed his fate.
Such a charming fellow, isn't he? I bet that's a direct line to the police department. You should make a rude noise into it when Giles isn't paying attention. Either crime is low, or the police aren't doing their jobs very well. Not much in the way of comfort. No bed or even a bucket. It's a good thing this place is meant for short stays. Not much of a view. But then it's not as though people in here are meant to have many luxuries. He's watching you like a hawk. Looks liable to toss you in one of his cells if you try any funny business.
Mr. Martin?
Who are you? My lawyer?
No, I'm actually here to help you. The name's Miles Fordham. I'm a private investigator.
How are you going to help me?
I'm looking into the attack on Madame Dupre. I believe you're innocent.
Oh, thank heaven. That's music to my ears.
Would you mind answering a few questions for me?
Friend, if it means saving me from the noose, I'll tell you nothing less than God's truth.
Interesting choice of phrase for someone accused of using black magic.
What can you tell me about Madame Dupre?
What's to tell? She's a twisted, evil woman who got what was coming to her. Whoever attacked her deserves some sort of reward for the service they're doing the community.
So it wasn't you, then?
No, I'm innocent, Mr. Fordham. You have to believe me.
I'm afraid you're not making that very easy right now, Mr. Martin. Do you know anything about the circumstances of Madame Dupre's supposed death?
No, I had nothing to do with it.
Then why did her son accuse you?
Probably because he's just as ignorant as she is.
What I meant was, how did her son know to accuse you? Have you had any contact with the family before?
Yes, you could say that.
Uh-oh. That gleam in his eye says it all.
You see, I'm involved with Dupre's daughter, Juliet Montgomery. Dupre doesn't like that one bit. She even threatened me once.
Is that right?
Yes, she might have everyone else fooled, but that woman is the devil incarnate. I can't understand how something so heartless and cruel could have spawned someone as pure and loving as my dear Juliet.
He's not really helping his case much, is he?
Tell me about Juliet.
She's wonderful. Such a beautiful, kind soul. She hasn't come to see me yet, but I'm sure that's because of all the confusion in the last few days. Juliet wouldn't believe for a second that I would be capable of harming her mother. I'm sure of it.
How did you two get involved?
We met at the university.
Your classmates?
Hardly. They wouldn't allow someone like me to enroll there. Juliet studies botany. I work as an assistant in the greenhouse. We started talking, and she actually treated me like a person. To everyone else, I was just the boy who fetched the test tubes. But Juliet actually wanted to hear what I had to say, had the same taste in books and art, didn't just treat me like some piece of gardening equipment. She even shared some of her notes with me after I told her I was interested in botany as well. From there, things just got better. I don't expect you to understand or approve, but that's how it happened.
Oh, you'd be surprised. It doesn't sound too different to how my wife and I got together. Except I was a detective and she was a singer at a bar.
And she's...
Yes, Mr. Martin. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. How often is Juliet in the greenhouse?
Every weekday, but I doubt she's there now. She's probably trying to find out where I am and working to have me released.
Somehow, I wouldn't bet on that.
How did you end up in here?
I was just minding my own business at home when the police showed up with no warning. They made some outrageous claims about me putting some sort of curse on Madame Dupre. The next thing I knew, I was here. Oh, Mama must be beside herself with worry. I just hope she's all right.
What does your mother do, Mr. Martin?
She helps people.
I was hoping you'd be just a bit more specific.
She provides spiritual help to those who seek guidance.
She's a spiritualist.
Not quite. She's more like... how can I explain it? You know how a priest holds mass to spread the word of God to the people? My mother holds services and calls on the spirits to walk among us, providing healing and guidance.
So she's a religious leader?
If you want to give her that title, it would be the most appropriate.
And does this religion of yours have a name?
You'd probably know it as voodoo, but it doesn't mean what you think it does. People are so quick to judge and portray us as evil when they have no idea.
So you practice voodoo, do you?
Are you making fun of me, Mr. Fordham?
No, of course not. Apologies if it seemed as though I was. It's just that the police are convinced that black magic was involved in Madame Dupre's apparent death.
That's because that idiot son of hers knew about my mother, and like all bigoted fools, assumed that we're involved in devil worship and the black arts. But I can assure you that this is most certainly not the case, Mr. Fordham.
Of course, I didn't mean to imply.
Just forget it.
That's all for now.
Wait, before you go, would you do me a favor? Would you go see my mother at our house and give her a message?
You're at 451 Compton Street, right?
Yes, that's right. Could you tell her I said St. Roch's dog is barking?
I suppose I could do that, yes.
Oh, thank you.
Whatever happened to a simple I love you?
You are aware this is private property, sir?
Yes, I'm Miles Fordham, private investigator. I'm looking into the incident involving Madame Dupre. I assume this is she?
You assume correctly, Mr. Fordham. My apologies, but I thought the police had already made an arrest.
That's right, but there's still some doubt as to the man's guilt. May I ask your name, sir?
I am Dr. Fellows. Madame Dupre's private physician. I'm afraid she is in no state to be answering questions at present.
Are any other members of the family home?
Her son, Mr. Montgomery, is in the entrance hall. I had to give him a mild sedative to settle his nerves, but he should be all right to converse.
Then if you don't mind, I'll have a look around.
Her eyes are glazed over and she's got a vacant, expressionless stare. She seems completely oblivious to her surroundings. If we didn't know she'd been buried alive, I'd say she was just exhibiting the typical symptoms of your average rich person. With her vast sums of wealth, Madame Dupre could probably feed a starving family for the next 30 years. Instead, she uses the money to keep her hedges trimmed. This fountain probably looked nicer when it was working, but right now it's just a breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Doctor, may I ask you a few questions?
Please be my guest.
Tell me about Madame Dupre.
She is a great woman and a pillar of the community. I cannot imagine why something like this could happen to her, or how someone could be capable of such a barbaric feat. Though this ordeal has been terrible, I am confident she will overcome. The power of her physical constitution is surpassed only by her strength of character.
Do you think he'd say the same things if he wasn't on her payroll? I highly doubt it.
What were the circumstances surrounding Madame Dupre's supposed death?
Her son, Andrew, sent for me a few days ago after finding her unconscious and unresponsive. As I was unable to detect a pulse or breath, I had no other recourse but to declare her deceased. I judged that Madame Dupre had likely suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. It was most shocking to be proven wrong at a funeral.
I can imagine. Where was the funeral held, by the way?
St. Denis Cemetery. Madame Dupre wished to be interred in the tomb of her father's family, name of Chesterton.
Perhaps I'll go have a look. How long have you been Madame Dupre's private physician?
5 years, and I've been practicing medicine for the past 30. I still spend a couple of days a week treating patients at Riverview Asylum.
Oh, good. Maybe if you're lucky, he could be your doctor someday.
30 years is quite a long time. You must have seen some incredible advances in the field of medicine.
I have, yes. I can only wonder how things will change with all this talk of ethericity. There's speculation it can be used to restore necrotic tissue and instantly heal broken bones, among other things. If you ask me, a good bloodletting will never go out of fashion.
Did you examine Madame Dupre after she reanimated?
Of course. Physically, she appeared to be in fine health aside from minor dehydration. I found no marks or bruising on her body. Mentally is a different story, however. She's remained in an unresponsive state ever since.
Do you have any opinions on what caused Madame Dupre to appear dead?
The most likely cause I can imagine is some sort of poison or toxin.
What leads you to believe Madame Dupre was poisoned?
The symptoms she experienced were consistent with prior cases of poisoning I've studied. And didn't the young man arrested have ties to some kind of black magic cult? There have been reported cases of these practitioners using poisons to make people appear dead, then commanding them to do their bidding. I recall reading about a man in the West Indies who was given tetrodotoxin, that's the toxic secretion from a pufferfish, declared dead and buried. He appeared alive in his village some 20 years later.
Doesn't that seem a bit far-fetched to you, Doctor?
Facts are facts, Mr. Fordham. Surely someone in your line of work can appreciate that.
Those are all the questions I've got for now.
I hope I answered them adequately.
Oh, hello. Are you the new servant?
No, I'm Miles Fordham. I'm a private investigator looking into your mother's attempted murder.
How did you know I was her son? Oh, of course. You must have sensed it with your detective's intuition. I should have guessed by that giant head of yours.
Are you feeling all right, Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, I'm fine. Much better than when those pesky police officers were snooping around earlier. But I like you, Mr. Fordham. I can already tell you're not like them at all. Please, call me Andrew.
Yes, well, I'll have a look around and I may need to ask you some questions. Do you think you can handle that?
I can. In fact, I really look forward to it.
If the good doctor gave him a mild sedative, I'd hate to see what the stuff you take would have done to him. What a beautiful parrot. Must have cost the Dupreys a cool copper.
Who's a pretty bird?
Ray's a pretty bird.
Polly, want a cracker?
No, thank you.
Pieces of 8?
Aye, matey.
So long, Birdie.
Bye-bye.
Duprey looks like she's holding on to that poor bastard for dear life. A horrible little porcelain figurine. Madame Duprey didn't strike me as the type to play with dolls. This is always my favorite part of detective work.
Nothing inside but a bunch of extra doilies.
How disappointing. Maybe you should steal one, just to spite Madame Duprey for not giving us any good clues.
No, Bill.
You're no fun, Miles.
There's nothing useful to the investigation in there.
The Gascon docks. The artist definitely took some liberties. You can't see a single person getting stabbed. Nice bouquet of roses, although it would make things much easier if they were Easter lilies.
If only.
Must be nice being able to afford keeping your oil lamps lit during the daytime. A much younger Madame Duprey. I suppose that's a nice alternative to a mirror. Ooh, a fainting couch. You know, I always wanted one of these, but I never fainted enough to justify buying one. You've got some huge bags under your eyes, Miles. Reminds me of the case we had on that strange train.
Don't remind me.
That's an old uniform, from the turn of the century by the look of it. This must be Madame Duprey's first husband. Kinda strange that she'd still keep his portrait in the bedroom.
It would appear that Madame Duprey was taking music lessons.
Her current predicament has probably put an end to that venture, though. Seems Madame Dupre fancies herself a poet.
Well, that was life-changing.
For once in my life, I'm completely speechless.
Then perhaps I should take this with me and read it more often. Nah. Let's see if there's anything in these drawers. Damn, nothing but personal effects and more stationery.
Don't forget the first rule of detective work. If there's nothing useful inside, check underneath and between.
Ah, yes, of course. Thanks for the reminder.
Now this is intriguing. Nothing else of interest in there. One of those melodramatic romances. I read it a while back and I couldn't tell you a thing about it. Now that one sounds interesting. I was always a fan of Bedletter's short stories. Doesn't appear to be very brief if there's 2 volumes of it. I wonder if anyone outside the family would find this even remotely interesting. Choice and consequence. Who in their right mind would write a book about that? I don't even want to know what that one's about. I read that one last year. If you ever wanted to know the intimate details of a buffalo's anatomy, I highly recommend it. Juliet really likes plants and flowers, doesn't she? Nice little cottage. Looks like it would make a nice cozy spot to retire. If I hadn't already retired from life, that is. I've never seen so many beauty products together in one place. Doesn't look like they get used much, though.
Locked. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
Well, someone's fancy. I never liked these types of beds much. They feel too claustrophobic.
I always thought they had a certain appeal myself.
Yes, you would think that about a bed that lets you shut out the rest of the world.
Let's have a look through these papers. Aha, what's this?
So, Juliet is renting a room in the Chum. That's certainly interesting. I can't wait to see what sort of dirty secrets she's got hidden away in there.
They're all empty. How unusual.
Not to mention disappointing. Goodness, someone went overboard with the flowers. This brings back some memories, doesn't it?
Ones I'd rather forget.
Why would anyone need so many flowers in one room?
Perhaps it's to mask the odors of those chemicals on the workstation.
Could be. Why would anyone need...
Perhaps it's...
Yeah, it must be a nice place to sit and listen to music. Oh, look! It's one of those new audio cylindergraphs. I can't quite wrap my head around how they can manage to get sound out of a wax cylinder. I don't know much about art, but I see Madame Dupre and I at least have similar tastes. Nice melody. I think you should call it The Cheater's Suite.
These should be useful.
What in the ether is that thing supposed to be? Actually, I'd rather not know. Is this really the best that medical science has to offer? A gentle reminder that everyone's time is slowly running out. Decadent. I can only wonder what sort of potions Andrew concocts in this thing. Dr. Tennyson's Vigor Pills. These would make a sloth act like a hummingbird. The Science of Pharmacology. I'm sure it's riveting stuff. It looks as though this folded piece of paper is being used as a bookmark. I hope remembering what page they were on wasn't too important.
Looks like it's a letter for Andrew. I have some questions for you.
Oh, goody.
What can you tell me about Madame Dupre?
She came back from the dead. I couldn't believe it. My mother, resurrected, just like Jesus.
Yes. I heard you're the one who accused Mr. Martin of the crime.
Oh, no, I already talked to the police about that. I don't want to think about it right now.
How do you typically spend your days, Mr. Montgomery? What are your interests?
Oh, a little of this and a little of that. Nothing as exciting as what you do, I'm sure. Ooh, tell me, do most bad people start crying when you catch them? I'll bet it's a laugh riot to see them sobbing away.
No, Mr. Montgomery, most of them don't.
Well, that's a real shame, isn't it?
What can you tell me about your sister, Juliet?
I'm reminded of a famous quote, Mr. Fordham. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Let us part on good terms and avoid the subject altogether, please.
That's a rather exotic bird you've got.
I like looking at him. He has such pretty colors, doesn't he?
That he does.
You know, I've always wondered what he might taste like. Is that bad, do you think?
I really couldn't say, Mr. Montgomery. Thanks for your time.
No, thank you for yours.
This is ridiculous. He won't be of any use in this state. If it takes him as long to snap out of it as it takes you, we'll be waiting around here until noontime tomorrow. There has to be a way to bring him back to his senses. Maybe that quack outside knows something of use. Certainly no shortage of bowls or food preparation items around here. Some kind of water dispensing device, maybe? I was never very good at finding my way around the kitchen. Yeah, it looks like gumbo's on the menu tonight. I wonder how it compares with Upton's special recipe. It's times like these make me wish I could still eat. Looks like the type of spices you'd use in a stew. Most likely paprika or turmeric. Nice variety of reds and oranges. Judging by the amount of food this family probably eats, washing the dishes must take forever.
Pardon me, miss.
What? Who are you?
I'm Miles Fordham. I'm investigating the attempted murder of Madame Dupre.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm very busy. I can't help you.
Do you know anything about what happened to Madame Dupre?
No, I don't. Please leave me to my work. I shouldn't be talking to you.
All right, I'm going. Doctor, may I ask you a few questions?
Please be my guest.
May I ask exactly what kind of sedative you gave Andrew?
A simple tincture of laudanum. It's what I give all my nervous patients.
He seems a bit out of sorts.
Hot? Meat kettle.
It can have that effect, but it usually wears off in half a day or so.
Is there a way to bring him out of his condition sooner?
A stimulant would have the opposite effect, but I wouldn't recommend mixing the two. It could have potentially harmful effects on his heart.
Oh, of course. I wasn't planning on doing anything of the sort. I was just curious.
It's cute how you act like you have no experience in these matters. It's almost convincing.
Those are all the questions I've got for now.
I hope I answered them adequately.
This fountain probably looked nicer when it was working, but right now it's just a breeding ground for mosquitoes. There's an angel on the fountain, but it doesn't look like it's weeping. This would probably be too risky a place to hide something anyway. Oh, it's as though we've journeyed to the tropics. I don't know how you can stand to keep that coat on in here. Those flowers are definitely not native to this area. They seem to be thriving in their glass tubes, though. Quite the assortment of plants they keep in here. I wonder if they serve any purpose or are just meant to look pretty. I've never seen a flower grow that big. What do you suppose they're feeding them? Judging from that pipe, that contraption must be used to keep the plants hydrated. But it looks like a giant earwax remover to me. One of those cute little Japanese trees that are all the rage these days. Personally, I don't see how giving a tree a haircut is meant to be relaxing.
Pardon the disturbance, but are you Juliet Montgomery?
I am. And you are?
Miles Fordham. I'm a private investigator looking into the events surrounding your mother's attempted murder.
Ah, of course.
Have you got time to answer some questions?
Yes, that shouldn't be a problem.
Do you know anything about the events leading up to your mother's premature interment?
No, it was a complete shock. Mother seemed to be perfectly healthy and full of life. Then, without warning, she was dead. Or so we thought.
I take it you were glad to be wrong?
What a ridiculous question. Of course I was. What sort of heartless beast would celebrate their mother's death?
Oh, I could name a few. Juliet definitely didn't shed any tears over Madame Dupre, though. That much is obvious.
Miss Montgomery, you don't have to lie to me. I'm not going to assume you tried killing your mother just because you weren't upset by her death.
I felt terrible about it. You have to understand, I didn't want her to be dead. I just felt a sense of relief. Please, don't think me a horrible person, Mr. Fordham. It's just that Mother and I aren't currently on the best of terms.
Why don't you and your mother get along?
We've never completely seen eye to eye on anything. She always disapproved of anything I did. When I was younger, she used to forbid me from speaking to the servants. I saw no harm in a kind word or smile, but she warned us that if we were too familiar, they would take liberties. Then when I declared my intentions to pursue academic studies, she really went livid. In her opinion, a university education was tantamount to a chastity belt. What sort of man would want a wife with a head full of useless facts, she'd say.
Personally, I've always found intelligence to be quite attractive.
I assume your mother didn't approve of your involvement with Mr. Martin?
A rather forward question, Mr. Fordham. But you're not mistaken. I'm not sure how she managed to find out about Albert and me, but when she did, she nearly had a conniption. As I'm sure you can understand, the situation at home has been less than perfect in the last few months. I'd really rather not dwell on it.
You mentioned you were friends with the servants.
Yes, that's right. I didn't care that they worked for us. Everyone needs a friend.
Did your mother ever mistreat them?
Mistreat? No, I wouldn't say so. She was always very stern, though, and quite cold. If they ever shirked their duties or misbehaved, they were punished, of course, but nothing out of the ordinary that I ever saw. Most of the servants are my friends, but I'm closest with Amelie, the kitchen maid. Mother wasn't too happy about that. Amelie's been around as long as I can remember. She's like the aunt I never had.
What can you tell me about Albert Martin?
I'm not quite sure where to begin.
Why not start by telling me what your relationship with him was?
We met here at the greenhouse. He was working as an assistant, sweeping and cleaning and fetching things for the students. My focus was on academics, naturally. I wasn't too interested in romance. In fact, I've had to turn away nearly every single one of my classmates. But with Albert, I found myself intrigued. I noticed him stealing glances, lingering just a bit too long after bringing over a book or flask, sweeping the same patch of floor near me over and over again. It wasn't too long before I had him bringing me tools and equipment, regularly.
I see.
As I mentioned, Mother was an absolute terror when she found out.
Do you believe Mr. Martin did what he stands accused of?
I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't seem like him, but
Albert can be quite passionate. If the police believe he's to blame, then they must have a reason for it. It wasn't any secret that he hated Mother. Perhaps I should have ended things sooner. It was satisfying to know that Mother was displeased, but I never imagined it would lead to something like this.
Well, it's nice to see she's all heart.
So, you study botany. Fascinating subject.
Are you an admirer of plants, Mr. Fordham?
My wife has the green thumb in the household, but I do have a certain appreciation for them.
Plants are amazing things, just like people in many ways.
How do you mean?
They need attention and care. Ignore a plant, and it will wither. Give it too much attention, and it will become sick. Plants have many things to teach us, and I greatly enjoy learning from them.
What can you tell me about your brother?
Andrew, Mama's precious little boy. If you've met him, you pretty much know all you need to. He's had the whole world handed to him on a silver platter. But he's in for a rude awakening someday. Mother can only provide for him for so long.
These plants are impressive. Are they yours?
Yes, I've developed a method to make them extra healthy and strong.
They're larger than anything I've ever seen. How do you do it?
Ah, but I can't reveal my secrets, Mr. Fordham. The world will hear about my discoveries soon enough.
Incidentally, do you know anything about Easter lilies?
No, I don't keep or grow those here.
No more questions for now.
Then if you don't mind, I have work to do.
Can we talk?
Go on, I'm listening.
I wanted to go over the case with you.
Okay, what have you got?
Madame Dupre's son isn't being very helpful.
Is he refusing to talk?
More like incapable. The family doctor has him pretty well drugged to the gills. I need to find some way to perk him up.
Well, we are in a coffee house.
I have a feeling it will take something a touch more powerful than coffee. That's enough about the case for now.
Okay.
That's it, I think.
Then you'd better get back to it.
Ah, Compton Street. We're not too far from Restaurant Row. When's the last time you ate, anyway?
Please, let's not add eating to the list of things to nag me about.